What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I think is currently the most overpowered item in Chapter 5 Season 3, and that is going to be the Shield Breaker EMP Grenades. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below if you've been using EMPs since they were added in the Metallica update. So these were added in last week's Metallica update. Boogie Bombs were vaulted. I think these are the best counter to cars. And if you guys have kind of been following my content for this season, when Boogie Bombs were in the game and we knew they were temporary, I talked a lot about how I thought even when EMPs come in, they'll be just as good, if not even better, of a counter to cars. And I do still feel that way after being able to play for a while now with EMPs. They'll deal 80 shield damage to opponents and disable cars for 10 seconds. And then one change is that it does disable the turrets of the car as well. So if someone's in the turret of a car, you EMP it, that turret can no longer fire for the duration that the car is EMP'd, and that is huge. You can carry 6 of these, and they do drop in stacks of 3, so you only have to find 2 spawns of it to have a full stack. And the fact that it drops in stacks of 3 now, like, just anytime you find one spawn, that is like a huge refresh on them, you know? Like, if you have 3, EMP a car, use 2, and now you have 1 left. If you find another set of 3, you have 4 left, and that's 2 more potential, like, double on a car. Like, it's just incredibly good. One thing to keep in mind that I've seen confusing a lot of people, or kind of surprising a lot of people, is that when disabled, the car will continue its momentum. So it doesn't just, like, immediately stop on a dime. It just stops being able to accelerate. So, like, if you've ever been driving a car in this game and then got out and the car just rolls away, imagine that when it gets EMP'd. Like, it will kind of continue its momentum, especially if it's going rather quickly. It might travel a decent amount. You need to keep this in mind if you are standing right in front of the car when you EMP it, because it's not like you EMP it and then it stops immediately. If you're standing in its path, you can get hit by the car, and that could potentially kind of throw the fight for you. So just keep in mind, it doesn't stop on a dime immediately. It will need to, like, come to a stop. Since they do 80 shield damage, if you throw 2 at a player, you will completely remove their shield and 0 build. A full health opponent with, like, full overshield has 150 shield. So if you throw 2, that's 160 shield damage. That person has no more shield. They only have their white health. That makes it super easy to win the fight when it actually does happen. If you chuck 2 at a car, the player inside just has to get out and face you while having no shield at all. It's just really OP, and I'm surprised that I don't see more people kind of complaining about it. And this is why I thought they would be just as OP as boogies were before we had them, like when we had boogies in the game. Because, like, you would boogie a car, shoot the person, and you might hit like a nice solid pump shot or shotgun shot and have them pretty weak, but you might also hit like 50 damage or so, and just, like, now the person is unboogied in front of you while at 200 health, and that was a fight that could be turned. I feel like 160 shield damage on a, like, snap like that is just as difficult, or, like, super difficult, maybe in a different way to deal with than them getting boogie bombed. So I do think that these these EMPs were kind of being underrated when people acted like vaulting boogies for them would just make the game so much better. Like boogie bombs, though, being above your opponent makes it much easier to land the EMPs on the car. So being on, like, buildings, being on high ground, using your gloves to go up and then throwing them down on the car, or just even using the flowberry fizz to get, like, a little more to your jump and a little more airtime can make it a lot easier to land EMPs on the cars. And if the car is moving somewhat quickly, you will have to lead your throw a bit and aim ahead of the car or ahead of where it's going if you're a bit further away. I think one of the easiest ways to, like, land EMPs on a car is to get someone to chase you, especially into situations where it's easy to EMP them. Like, if they're chasing you and then you kind of glove up to, like, a rooftop and then you throw the EMPs down, super easy angle for you to hit them. You kind of go up a mountain in a way where the car has to go around, you know, that could also be an easier time to hit them. If the car is just driving away from you, it's really difficult to use EMPs. Not really difficult, but it's like, that is the most difficult time to use EMPs on cars, is when they're actively trying to avoid you. But if they're driving at you, you can EMP them. You just got to be careful that you don't get hit by the car. And if you can get them to chase you into some situation that's, like, inconvenient for the car to drive in, it, like, kind of forces it to slow down, or where you aren't in immediate danger to the car, I think those are the ideal situations for EMPs. Sometimes I'll also just kind of drive my car up to a car and then get out and then throw the EMPs at the enemy car from behind the safety of my own car. And we kind of have my car as a sort of roadblock. But like I already said, if they're actively trying to just run away from you, EMPs are often going to be a bit of a struggle to like hit on the car. One thing you do need to keep in mind with these shield breaker EMPs though is it's an explosive item in essence. Like, it deals its effect in a radius around the shield breaker. So there might be times where a car is in the affected radius of the shield breaker, but the player inside the car isn't. Like, there might be times where you EMP the car, but not the player. And there is a different audio cue for when you hit the player. There's like a very distinct shield break or shield damage noise when you hit the player with the EMP. And just, you need to kind of listen out for that. It can be difficult to like see the damage numbers sometimes in chaotic situations, which is often what's going to be happening when you're around a car. But I feel like knowing the difference between the audio cue when you hit shield versus when you don't hit shield can be a nice peace of mind. Because if you hit a car, you throw 2 nades, you hit a car once, and you hit the player once as well, then that they took 80 shield damage. But if you go into that thinking that you hit the player twice with the shield damage and that they have no shield at all, you might play in a way that just doesn't really work, you know? So just be aware of the audio cues and be aware of the fact that you can hit the car without actually damaging the player inside, depending on like the radius of things and like just the situation. Like, weird things happen in Fortnite, you know? In addition to these EMPs being amazing versus cars, there's also really just good against players, because 80 shield damage is no joke and 160 shield damage is game changing. So like, whenever you have people playing off of cover or playing right shoulder peek, and you're kind of in that like game of chicken where like, you know what they're doing, but they're not like doing anything yet, the EMPs are great for flushing people out from behind cover, out behind bushes. If you know they're in a house and you could just throw it down and then push in, things get a lot easier. Also, whenever somebody is in the weapon bunkers, if you have somebody playing the bottom of a weapon bunker, then throwing the shield breaker EMPs down into it you'll get one, I feel like, pretty easily a lot of times, because people like to play the corner. But if you're able to hit 2, that's a super easy fight to win. And again, this might be a situation where seeing the damage numbers is rough. So knowing the difference when in the audio cue, I think is huge. And so how I've been playing since the Metallica update is I just try to find these and a mobility item off spawn. Like, ideally, I would like to get, you know, a shotgun and burst SMG. But the main kind of things I'm looking for off spawn are gloves and then the shield breaker EMPs. And then from there, I go and get the medallions. I go and hunt the medallion players, get rid of them. Anybody in a car, I feel like is very easy to deal with if you have EMPs and if the car isn't just only running. And since the EMPs drop 3 at a time, you really only need to find a stack or 2 off, like a spawn of it, or 2 off spawn to really like get going in the game. It's not like you need to find a ridiculous amount of spawns of EMPs to be able to use them. And I've also ran into like a decent amount of players using these, so I'm usually able to refresh a bit off of kills, which is nice. And so now that that's out of the way, I kind of want to talk about what will typically happen when you EMP a car, because I feel like there's 2 things that people do. Typically, if someone is newer, from what I've seen, if they don't really know how the EMPs play yet, sometimes they just sit in the car, or in solos, they'll swap from like the driver's seat to the turret seat and try to shoot you. So in that situation, you could just shoot at them with like your burst SMG or your combat or AR, whatever spray weapon you have. That is like very new players, I feel like. People who aren't used to dealing with the item will just sit in the car or try to swap to the turret seat or not really know what to do. But players who are more aware of what's going on, if you double EMP their car, expect them just to get out and run. Because if you hit 2, you just fully broke their shield. And some may fight, but even if they do, it should be a super easy fight for you to win, because you just destroyed all of their shield and they only have 100 health. Like, if you have 250 health and they have 100, you have a huge advantage in that fight. So a lot of times what I've done is, if I double EMP a car, I just try to jump on it and then like shoot at the person immediately as soon as they get out, because they're often going to get out, swap to their gloves, and then just try to run away, or swap to their guitar and try to use it, because they know, crap, my car is disabled, my shield is broken, I need to get out of here. And even if they do try to fight you, like it might be kind of risky for you just to like jump right on them and play super aggro after EMPing them. even if they do try to fight back, you have a ridiculous health advantage. And even in team game modes, if it's like squads and you EMP all 4 people twice, it might be risky for you and your team to all jump on that team and try to eliminate them. But you want to quickly get the kills before they get away and heal, or before they get away and reset the fight. And again, you have such a distinct HP advantage in that moment that I feel like oftentimes you can play pretty risky, because if you just have like a trade of damage, you're going to win out in the long run. So I try to double EMP a car and then play super aggro. And more often than not, the player just tries to run away. And like I said, if they shoot back, cool, that's great. Like, you should have no problem winning that fight, you know? And I did say they can be used on people, but I like to reserve these for cars. Like, if I've already eliminated most of the cars in game, like let's say it's late game, then maybe I'll try to use it on people. Or if I come across a weapon bunker and someone's sitting inside, then I'll use it on people. But if we're pretty early in the game, it's not gonna be my first go-to move to try to EMP a player. It can work and it makes the fight very easy, but like these items are consumable, so I want to save them for cars as much as possible. So if I can get kills on players without using the EMPs, that would be preferable. When it comes to trying to find more of these in the mid to late game, I feel like it's best to either just get them from people you eliminate, hopefully, and like I said, they seem to be a somewhat popular item, or getting the weapon bunkers or getting the loot island. Because the thing about the weapon bunkers and loot island when it spawns in is the loot in those things haven't been accessed by anybody until they spawn in or open up. So if you need EMPs and it's about to be third zone, try to get to a weapon bunker right away in hopes that like the legendary chests in there have EMPs, because each weapon bunker has 3 legendary chests and each legendary chest has 2 utility spawns in the slot of the chest. And so in the EMP spawn in the utility slot, so you have like 6 chances to get EMPs out of a weapon bunker. And I think there's floor loot in there as well, which could maybe be an EMP as well. And then loot island, I don't know if you can get them from capturing loot island, maybe you can, but the floor loot and the chests in loot island, if you get there quickly, haven't been accessed by anybody yet. So if you do need a refresher on EMPs, that can be your go-to move. I prefer the EMPs over any other car counter item in the game right now. But if I am late in the game and I'm, you know, maybe I have 1 EMP and then there's also a boom bolt next to me, or I have 1 EMP left and maybe I just eliminated the player who has the medallion and the mythic boom bolt, I would probably take the boom bolt in that instance. But if I have like 6 EMPs versus a boom bolt, I would rather use the EMPs than the boom bolt. I feel like it's just a more immediate counter to the car. Talked about this a lot with the boogie bombs, but like, part of what makes the boogies and the EMPs so busted, it is a very instant, immediate counter to the car. The car is playing the game, you double EMP them, their car is not working anymore, they just took 160 shield damage and they have to respond to that in the heat of the moment when you're jumping on them. That's why I want to jump on them and keep that pressure up, because it's just such a chaotic situation for them. Whereas if you're boom bolting a car, you will kill it over time, but the player in the car is becoming increasingly aware over time that their car is about to get destroyed, and they can maybe formulate a plan in their mind or like get ready to do what they want to do. Whereas the EMPs, it changes the game so much for the player inside, and you can do this in a very short time span and not give them much time to react. So that's why I think the EMPs and the boogie bombs were such good counters to cars, and why I think the EMPs are probably the most overpowered item right now for zero build in season 3. But that is going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think of the EMPs. If you guys did find this helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like some more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.